Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to talk about what many will probably consider the worst collaboration in gacha history. And that is none other than the Fate collab that has released very recently alongside version 3.4 of Honkai Star Rail. And one of the big reasons for why I wanted to do an actual review, I played a good part of the story without skipping, is because, well, this collab is coming alongside a 200 pull spending event. It's been in the works for a year, and it's one of the things that many people are saying is going to save Honkai Star Rail, right? So I wanted to give it a chance. I wanted to go ahead and give it my all in terms of trying to enjoy this story and see where the value is, because I am a Fate fan. I've seen Zero, all three paths, and then I've also seen the Heaven's Feel movies as well. And so the thing is that I've got a lot of knowledge of like the world and the lore coming into this, and so I'm expecting quite a bit coming out of it. But the unfortunate part is, ladies and gentlemen, this collab has a lot of issues. This collab has a lot of problems. And today, we're going to take the time to actually outline and point out what all of those issues are. I've got my VOD over here, and you'll see that the part that I left off was kind of like in the middle of like the 2-hour, 30-minute mark. That was where I actually stopped playing. And so, to start off with the very first issue in this quest, the lack of English voiceovers. And the lack of your ability to actually combine voiceovers from different languages to actually get a decent overall experience. You either choose all or nothing when it comes to this quest. You play in English and you understand the language, or you play in Japanese and then you get the voiceovers. It's one or the other. You can't have English voices for the other characters and then JP voices for the collab ones, which you probably would naturally want, knowing that English is not going to get the voicing. But that's not possible here. So it's either go fuck yourself or go fuck yourself in a slightly different way. Not off to a good start. Now, let's get into perhaps one of the worst parts of this entire quest. And that's finding out at the beginning that the quest has actually already happened. That's the first part of this quest. It's Robin telling you that the Holy Grail War in Penacony is already over. That's how this quest starts off. So there's no point at all. There's no stakes in whatever you're doing. That's what you already know. Then let's move on to the next piece. That's a bit of an issue. And that is all of the same entire storytelling issues that Honkai Star Rail has built a reputation for. And that is some of the worst camera angles and emoting in the history of the game. As we get through like more and more exposition, we start having like more chats, all of that stuff. We end up in the eyes of Scott. Right? We find out why the Holy Grail is in Penacony, what it's doing. Old Odie is like the sort of like main dude, and Scott's supposed to be the main character of this quest. This entire quest is not a Fate collaboration. It is a Penacony side or main quest with Fate characters replacing NPCs. That is the amount of significance that the Fate characters actually have on the story. They're essentially NPCs. And the real evidence of that is the fact that roles like assassin, writer, caster, so on and so forth, aren't actually taken on by any Fate characters. Instead, you find out during the exposition, well, they got Mr. Rekka. They got a fucking NPC to be Scott's servant. A fucking NPC. Except this time, instead of calling him Mr. Rekka, you gotta call him Grady. Then we just get more and more and more exposition for all the different master and servant relationships. And you want to know the best part about this? I don't know what exactly it was, but they decided to take inspiration from ZZZ and actually show all of these master servants on TVs.
Oh, listen to that.
That's pretty good.
Wish grand contract. Just
Was
It's been a while.
And you can imagine where this led. And this is one part that I want to focus on in particular.
Should I take care of this first?
Off! Who's behind this prank? Maybe I should pass this to March and Don Hong instead. Wait, why is there graffiti on Pom Pom's hand?
They just have the same stock animation of Pom Pom brushing the floor as he's talking about a command spell that just appeared on his hand. and he just does this the entire time. This is something that's been in development for a year. This is something that they announced a year in advance. This is the collab that they're asking you to spend 200 pulls on. They have a spending event for this collab, and this is the effort that they're putting into the storytelling. This is the effort that they're putting into the actual plot of this fucking disaster. But don't worry, there's more. I'll be consulting my list on the side of what is wrong here. That's just a little bit of the exposition. We find out a bunch of different playable characters have servants. We go through more yap, find out about what's going on, and then we find out, oh boy, Scott's trying to get revenge on us for all the times that we have literally dog-walked him in the prior quests of the game. Scott is the main character. Mr. Rekka is the second main character, and a nameless other NPC that gets introduced later is the third main character. The Fate collab units might as well not even exist, and the story would not be impacted at all. Do you want to know what the role of the Fate collab characters is? It's to simply repeatedly tell people that they're not from this world, and to describe the dynamics of how they're not from this world. And this is the best part. You'll have all these characters show up. Lancer shows up for one part of the quest and then just disappears and pieces out. He's actually Boot Hill's servant. Boot Hill will appear in the story, but Lancer won't be there. Lancer shows up for one section and then just goes MIA for 2 hours. Then we find out we actually ended up summoning Saber. And this is the thing, right? This is pretty cool. We get our first cutscene. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh my, are they gonna do the thing where it's like, oh, they did the thing! That's possibly the only actual Fate reference that's in here, and this happens in every single route. There is nothing Unlimited Blade Works about this entire collab. They might as well have just put Fate Stay Night and nothing else. The only thing that makes this Unlimited Blade Works is nothing. There's nothing. The label is just put on there. I think it's literally false advertising. The shit that they've done with this. It's a complete fucking joke. This is in all 3 of the routes. Then they basically just go ahead and start spending a bunch of time on more exposition about the Fate characters. So they go ahead, they talk about this situation that they have going on over here, about how the servants are from a completely different area. They need like different sources of power and they're not able to get it over here. So they have to eat a shit ton of food. This is repeated one time by Saber when she appears. It's repeated again by Archer and by Lancer as they're discussing with their masters, Adventurine and Boot Hill, and then it gets repeated a third time later on. They literally cannot stop talking about why these characters are not at full strength and why they can't really contribute that much. They even manage to just repeatedly use some of the most bland, boring camera angles possible. Sure, they do use a couple more of them, but even when they're designing them, you'll have characters literally staring off into the distance, not even looking like they're a part of the conversation. He's looking at Boot Hill and Adventurine. Archer over here is just looking at fucking nothing. He's literally looking at nothing. Looking at nobody. And then we have some of the issues with his model as well. There's one pose where he crosses his arms, and you just can't help but think to yourself, is his jacket just painted on? The textures that they've put into this look ridiculous. That's not how coats work in real life. It's lifeless, it's bland, it's boring, it's absurd. So we have that. Now let's look at another servant that gets summoned over from our friend Robin. That's Castor. That's one of the powerful servants getting summoned into the Holy Grail War. That's Castor. Miss Note, a random no-name NPC. And she's the third main character of this storyline. It's Mr. Rekka, it's Scott, and her. Everybody else is literally a side character. The collab characters are side characters in the collab. It's actually featured around a bunch of random Pentaconi NPCs. And then you end up in a situation where everyone just ends up teaming up in the Holy Grail War. A war that to Fate fans is when everybody fights each other to the death. Master and servant versus master and servant. But how are you gonna have a dynamic of everybody fighting each other to the death when all of these characters are allies? They're all friends. The only party in this master-servant thing going on that is against the main character and all the playable characters is Scott. That's why he's the main character. This is also the third time where they decide to go ahead and do the exposition about why the characters are not as strong. Like, dude, it's just... Let's find the moment right here. And that's why I react like that, because this is the third time that they've said the exact same thing. That's because I don't come from Pentaconian history. I don't come from the history of your world at all. It is repeated over and over and over again for the first hour and a half of this quest. They keep talking about this, even though the viewer has seen it at least 3 times. I get that there's a need to provide context for people that maybe haven't seen Fate and are jumping into this collab, but 3 times in the first hour? Are we serious here? This is like Paimon, except every character is Paimon. And so, naturally, you find out that they're all buddies. You all find out that they have no issues at all. And so, naturally, right, you can't have the conflict of the Holy War. It's not possible, because the Holy War is about people fighting each other. So what's the point when everybody is an ally? And this is probably one of the worst parts about the collab, is how these devs over at Hoyoverse have completely bastardized the lore of the Fate franchise. And Fate fans over here should have probably noticed this one. What's one thing about Saber that's kind of like her secret that anybody that's watched any of the anime would know? It's that Saber puts an invisible field across her weapon so that nobody knows she's using a sword. That's like why her sword is not visible. You're literally not supposed to be able to see it. And this random no-name fucking NPC just mentions that she has a sword. You want to know the only time that she's seen Saber fighting? Right here. Get ready. Looks like everyone's hungry. Oh, everyone's getting a bite to eat. Check this out. Right, it's Saber's literally invisible sword that nobody's supposed to be able to see, because that's one of her literal defining characteristics, is them not knowing what her weapon looks like. And the character immediately knows. The character immediately knows that she's holding a sword. What the fuck? What is even going on here? Let's move on to some more parts. And this is where stuff starts getting really, really, really bad in the story. This is where stuff really starts going downhill. There's some of the things that I've been pointing out so far, you might consider them nitpicking. You might consider them just overall critiques to the entire HSR story. Let's get into where stuff starts becoming really, really, really bad. And that's when we actually get into the main plot development of the story. And we begin realizing at this moment in time, the collab characters might as well not exist. And you want to know what this segment tees off with? An absurdly long text from one of the playable units, Boot Hill. This is what the text looks like. And that tees off this section. So let's take a look at it. You end up trying to meet up with your allies, and then you're immediately thrust into this situation. You can see everybody over here, and you begin wondering to yourself, where's Lancer? Boot Hill is right here, the master of Lancer. Archer's right there with Adventurine. Where the fuck is Lancer? And this is what I meant by bro literally just disappears for an entire 2 hours of the story. Maybe they're making a joke about him dying, because it happens all the time, right? But this is really more so my take. I believe that the HSR devs had some sort of contract with, like, the VAs of the Fate franchise, and they only had a specific number of lines that they could use. And so they went ahead and used up all of those lines on bullshit exposition that nobody gave a fuck about. A bunch of, like, just actual dialogue bloat that added nothing at all to the story. And so they had to find some way to fill out the runtime of the quest. And you want to know how they did it without having the voice actors ready to go? This is just my take, by the way. Check this out. Alright, surely we'll get to play Archer here. Surely we'll get to use Archer here.
撮影は始まった。役者たちを位置についてくれ。さあ、カメラを回して、あの時代に戻ろう。ザ・サイレント・ホラーショー
Keyword silent.
アクション
I think they ran out of voice lines. And you see here it starts at 3:42:30. And by the time I force quit this quest, because I have to end up playing as fucking Hanu, I end up transforming into Hanu, right? Check this out. Oh. I try to keep going until I end up in a Hanu section and I just force quit the quest because there's no voices. All I'm doing is fighting a bunch of NPCs, and the only interaction I get with this game is I'll go ahead. You'll go from dialogue to dialogue. It's all silent. There's no voices for any of these. It's dialogue to dialogue to dialogue, and the only time you get to walk and like actually control your character is you walking for about two seconds. Maybe 1 second, and then you immediately get thrust into another dialogue. Some of the characters are voiced. They work. Hey, this is 1 year, guys. Surely we're gonna fight something now. It's just dialogue after dialogue after dialogue. And it's so hard to find the moments where it isn't dialogue because that's just all this quest is. It's just you talking, and then you get to fight once in a while. And the thing is, as you're gearing up and you're ready for the fights, right, you're with the collab units. You're with the collab characters. And you want to know what happens when you actually finally get into a fight? You don't have the collab characters on your team. You don't have the trial unit. You literally just slot in with the initial team that you had before you started the collab quest. Even though they're both right there, they both have kits and their banners are both up there. Why do you think Chainsaw Scott is the only one with a voice here? I legitimately think the devs mismanaged this fucking project, had to find some way to pad the runtime of this quest because God forbid they have a quest shorter than 3 hours. And they just were like, fuck. Wait, it doesn't make sense for the playable characters to be here and not have voice lines. Fuck it, just don't put them in. Just don't let them fight with them. And you want to know how I know they fucked up in the drawing room? Because after this fight, read what the guys say. So this is the power of heroic spirits from another world. What power? We didn't see them fight. We didn't use them. Wouldn't this line have made more sense if we used trial characters of Archer and Saber to go beat that enemy? Isn't that what this voice line seems to be referencing? The fact that we used the trial characters to beat the boss. Oh, wait. We did it. We did it. Because I'm pretty sure, like I said before, this was all meant to be voiced. And the devs fucked up the management of this project, lost the VAs, and now they had to sub in whatever this trash is. And this goes on for over an hour. It's just all silent. Everything is silent. There's nothing going on. And every single combat you fight, you just end up using your team and none of the trial units. But don't worry, there's one time where the characters fight. Are you ready for this? Check this out. Oh, come on. Come on. Surely we get to use Saber now. Watch this, guys. They put in a 2D image. They put in a 2D image of Saber riding one of the dinosaur enemies in Penacony. Wait, is this just a 2D image? Wait, aren't they already saving enough money by not having the voice actors? You want to know how the fight gets resolved? Okay, now Saber is a rider. That was a fight. That was the fight. This is one of the worst quests I've ever seen. This is legitimately the worst fucking quest I might have ever played in Honkai Star Rail. It's like the devs were in a competition to see, could we make something worse than Amphorius? And then can we also insult HSR fans, Fate fans, both at the same time? They just completely, absolutely bastardized the lore of Fate. This is the last example that I'll show, and there are still so many things wrong with this quest. I know we talked about 2D PNGs. They also do it back here when they're starting to like summon the servants, and they actually have like one sequence where they're like hyping it up, right? Everyone's stepping into the summoning circle, and they're about to do like some crazy shit. And you want to know how they hype it all up? Check this out.
Says whistle and obey the crispy, crumbly pom-pom pie.
That's a 2D PNG.
Then answer.
Right, is this a bunch of 2D PNGs?
I have not come to bring all the good in the world, but I am fated to perish, defeating all evil in the world.
So that's how low budget this entire quest is. That's what an absolute cash grab, hype molestation, lore destroying piece of shit this collab is. I am baffled that Hoyoverse actually did this. It's a complete joke. This is why I'm telling you this is the worst collab in the history of gacha. And this is the last bit that I'll think I'll go with. Right as they're getting into the middle of this arc, there's something hilarious that occurs. Scott tries to use a command spell to control his servant, which is Grady. Grady is Scott's servant. Scott tries to use a command spell, and then Grady, the assassin servant, just says, nah, I'm good. Is Fate one of those series where the servants are just supposed to be like, nah, I'm good, when a command spell is used? Disgusting. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. And the servant fires his own master after that happens. I get it. It's a joke. It's a comedic thing. But this entire quest is a complete comedy. You're having a holy grail war where historically the characters are supposed to fight to the death, and every single master is buddy-buddy with each other. And so naturally, they're never going to actually end up fighting. There's never a single stake when it comes to this quest. There's no reason to care. And this is all teed off by you finding out the quest is already over, because this is a flashback. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's a complete flashback. The entire thing. And so you're just constantly asking yourself across this entire 4+ hour story, what reason do I have to care about anything that's going on in here? And then they just put in all this bullshit mini games. You turn into Hanu. And that's where I decided to put it down, because I'm just thinking to myself, these devs aren't respecting my time. These devs hate me, and they hate every single player that plays the game, and they hate every single Fate fan that plays the game. Because what in the fuck even was this? This is like a 4-hour episode of Carnival Phantasm, but you didn't know that's what you were watching. You went in, you were about to watch Heaven's Feel Part 2 or 3, and instead you got a 4-hour episode of Carnival Phantasm. That is what this collab feels like. What is the Unlimited Blade Works label doing on this? There is nothing in here that is even slightly relatable to any of the Fate arcs. There's no differentiators. Or at least in the first 2 hours and 30 minutes of this quest, there's nothing that makes this seem like Unlimited Blade Works. What a joke. What a complete bastardization. What a scum fucking job. And that's all I'm gonna say about this one. And you know what? What I said before, that was an insult to Carnival Phantasm. This is like a 4-hour, 1 out of 10 episode of Carnival Phantasm. It's an insult to it's an insult to that series to even try to compare it to it. Yeah, my apologies for that one. That'll be my take. And all I gotta say right here is, holy moly, what a complete fucking miss. Let me know what you all think, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.